of the Rebbe to learn Hilchot Beis Abchira in the days when Metzorim. We have the honor today to have a younger man, a mechanech, a Rizainikul from my Chavruse, Harav, a Chosid, Reb Levi, Kaarp. Come and please give us an insight into the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and everybody please to do the of the Rebbe to give also Tzedakah B'tzibur. So everybody has the pushkas, you can give Tzedakah B'tzibur. Reb Levi, b'vakasha.
Pasuk says, "Yisivne b'ayis chodosh, v'osisa Michael legagecha," which means that a person builds a new house and he uses the roof. The Torah says, "As a din, he has to make a micah." Why does he have to make a micah? Pasuk says, "Ki yipa noifel menu." As for shalom, if somebody they use the roof and there's no fence, so somebody might fall off. So we learn halacha mitzvah of micah. On this pasuk, the Sifri says the bayis l'rabis is a heichal, which means that in the Beis Hamikdash, the heichal of Beis Hamikdash, so on top of the gag of the heichal, they made a micah, they made a fence. Why did they make a fence? Not only because it looks nice, maybe there's a nice structural, on top of the Beis Hamikdash, which will look beautiful, and Allah havdol a nice rooftop, but rather because of the mitzvah of Micah. The Pashat is a chiyuv, a mitzvah to make a Micah on top of the heichal. So the Achronim asked, the Mechazkinuch and other people, Hallchut, the din is that a shul, Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMedrash, is potter from the mitzvahs of Micah. Why? Because the pasuk says, "Vasisa Micah ligagecha," to your rooftop. It has to have a bailer, has to be privately owned. And the Yoisa Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash cannot be called gagecha, your gag. So therefore, it's potter from the mitzvah of Micah. So the shaila is, if so, Ma'ishno, the Beis Hamikdash, the Heichal Beis Hamikdash, why should the Beis Hamikdash be any different? L'chura also, it doesn't go into the gather, of gagecha, it's not your gag. So there's a Geshmak beer of the Rogachover. The Rogachover Gon says that the halacha is that mitzvahs Maika, the chi of a mitzvahs Maika is as soon as you build a house, which means, when it comes to mitzvah mezuzah is not as soon as you build a house, but rather once you start living there. Mashenki, the mitzvah of Maika, is as soon, mishas kedusha, as soon as you build it, which means to say as soon as you build a house, right away, even before you use it, even before you live there. Nevertheless, there's a chiyuv of making a mitzvah of Maika. Therefore, the Chaver says that the Gemara says in Mesechtes Me'ilah that the Beis Hamikdash, first they build the Beis Hamikdash chulin, which means to say is that they had no kedusha, it was built as a regular building, and eventually they were mekadesh the Beis Hamikdash. The reason was because the builder shouldn't be moil behektish, so therefore, like this, you first build it to chulin, and then you make it your mekadesh the Beis Hamikdash. In Cain, the Rogachover says, comes out that the Beis Hamikdash was mechuyev in mitzvahs Maika. Why? Because since it was built as a regular house, so therefore while it was built as a regular house as the chiyuv of Maika, and only later on had a din of the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore then it became kodesh, and therefore Hayisa was built with chulin, so therefore it needed to have a Maika. So now the Rebbe says, tzorach in gadol mekama taimim. For many reasons, it has to be understood that l'chayra the Rogachover is not understood. Besides the fact that the pashtas, this halacha, the mitzvahs Maika is only mishas kedusha, which means that as soon as you build it, it doesn't have to be when you live there. There's only a das yachid in the Sifri, which truly Sifri is l'shitase, but it doesn't explain all the other rishonim that bring down the din of mitzvahs Maika and the. But besides that, l'chura, the main nekuda is that the reason why the Beis HaKnesses, Beis HaMedrash, Shulam, Beis HaMedrash is potter is because it doesn't have the gather of gagecha. It's not your gag. It doesn't have a bailer. It's not privately owned. It's not owned. If that's the case, shul. If that's the case, it has nothing to do with the fact if a shul is holy or not. Even if the shul is chulin, Sof kol sof, it's not considered gagecha. So even if the Beis Hamikdash was built, Shulchol, originally was built that it wasn't holy, but sof kol sof, it doesn't go into the gather of gagecha. If it doesn't go into the gather of gagecha, so therefore l'chura the Beis Hamikdash, even if it was taket built originally chulin, but sof kol sof, l'chura should be potter from mitzvahs maika. The Rebbe asks another question. L'chura, even if I'm going to say that originally when it was built shulchulin, and therefore it was chayav mitzvahs maika, but sof kol sof, eventually, once it becomes the Beis Hamikdash, or once it becomes a bayis shel kodesh, so therefore it's potter, and therefore the original chiyuv doesn't stay there. And okay, since sof kol sof the Beis Hamikdash eventually was shel kodesh, so the there's no reason that there needs to be an opinion of mitzvahs maika. So the Rebbe explains bekitzer ubagdama that the sugya in Masechtas Chulin, the Gemara says over there in Al-Chura, it says in the pasuk gagecha. Gagecha means your God. So Al-Chura, that would seem, the Gemara says that if it was bayis shel shutfim, which means there's a house that belongs to shutfim, to partners. So l'chura, in such a situation, l'chura, it's not considered gagecha. L'chura, it should be potter for mitzvahs maika. But now Gemara says no. The reason why it's chayiv, even though the lashon of the Gemara says gagecha in the shutfim loy, l'chura only if it's gagecha, not the shutfim. So why is a bayis shutfim chayiv the mitzvahs maika? The Gemara says because sof kol sof, the pasuk says ki yipol hanoifel mimeno, that the reason on mitzvahs maika is then somebody shouldn't fall down. L'mayishna, what's a chilik if it was privately owned, is not privately owned. So frag the Gemara im kain. So why, if it says, if that's the case, that bayis shutfim mistake chayiv mitzvahs maika, so why does it say gagecha? And for the Gemara, the muti beis haknes is a beis hamedrash. It comes to be might that beis haknes is beis hamedrash, which is potter from mitzvahs maika because it's not gagecha. So there's a pasha to kasha. The kasha is that we see that when it comes to bayis shutfim from partners that own a house, even though it's not gagecha, but sof kol sof, since we're worried ki yipol hanoifel mimeno, so therefore it's mechuyev mitzvahs maika. That's the case. So the same exact thing should be by beis hakneses beis hamedrash. The beis hakneses beis hamedrash, even though it's taka not gagecha, so we see that gagecha is not mamish kipshuta. So beis hakneses beis hamedrash, there's also the problem of ki yipol hanoifel mimeno. So why is it that beis hakneses beis hamedrash is potter for mitzvahs maika? So there Rashi gives two answers. The first answer that Rashi gives is because there's a difference between bayis hashutfim and a beis hakneses. Bayis hashutfim, even though I can't say mamish it's gagecha, it's only one person, but sof kol sof, since it belongs to two people and both people have full partnership and ownership on the thing, so therefore more loosely it's considered gagecha. Masha'enki, when it comes to a shul is not gagecha. Even though Takya Svara of Kippur Neifel Imeno applies, but the Torah says it has to be gagecha. And since by a shul we find, Rashi says, Ein lechelak echad mehem, by a shul, even if the Bnei Yir, the people of the city, built the entire shul, but it's not really considered a true bailis. Why not? Because Rashi says, Sha'afla Bnei Yir Ayamu. Because a shul, by definition, even if the Bnei Yir build a shul, it belongs to everybody. Which means to say, even if people not of their city also are able to come there. Since people, even though not their city, are able to come there. So therefore it comes out that you can't consider a shul gagecha. Because people that own, the people that are able to use it and act midilei never really gave anything to it. So therefore it doesn't go together of gagecha. Based on that, the Rebbe wants to come and answer the original kasha that we asked. Why is it that the Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash is taken b'chuyev v'mitzvahs maika? L'choyr it's not gagecha. So the Rebbe is mechadish that by Pashtus, the Beis Hamikdash, every year had a shaykhis with the Beis Hamikdash, which means starting with the fact that Mokem HaMikdash, the Sifri brings down that David HaMelech collected money from all the Shvatim, and therefore every single yid paid for the Mokem HaMikdash. But besides the Mokem HaMikdash, the actual material of the Beis Hamikdash, just like we find in the Mishkan that every single yid was mechuyev in the Mishkan to give or Yud Gimel Tezvav Dvarim. So Derech Zeb is Stabra Leimer. The Rebbe says when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, the same exact thing. That Beis Hamikdash, every single Yid participated and gave an adova to the Beis Hamikdash. In Cain comes out that the Beis Hamikdash had a gather of a Bayis HaShutfim. Means is because every single Yid had a chelik in the Beis Hamikdash. And since every Yid had a chelik in the Beis Hamikdash, it's just like we find by Bayis HaShutfim, you're mechuyev in mitzvahs Maika, tal derech zeh when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash. That's one beer. But Rashi really gives another beer of why a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMikdash is different than Bayis HaShutfim. And Rashi says it is because a Beis HaKnesses, a Beis HaMikdash is not considered a dira, Beis dira. You don't live there. In other words, in order to qualify for mitzvahs Maika, it has to be a bayis, it has to be a place that you live there, you're comfortable there. And Beis HaMikdash, not Platz for learning, Platz for davening. It's not a place of a Beis dira. In Cain, the Rebbe says, we could explain why when it comes to the Beis HaMikdash, it was takiyem mechuyev mitzvahs Maika. Why? Because the Beis HaMikdash, we find that one of the things they did in the Beis HaMikdash, and Yeshloimah, the Rambam Taka writes that biasly is makivim by karbonis. One of the things they did in the Beis HaMikdash was that they ate karbonis over there. The kohenim ate karbonis, and we find that al derech by mitzvah sukkah, we find that mitzvah sukkah, the mitzvah is teishu tein keduru, which means to say is a Beis dira. The sukkah is a Beis dira. What's ikir mitzvah sukkah? The inyan of eating achila. So we see one of the definition, or what defines primarily the mitzvah sukkah, is the concept of the eating. So if Cain comes out, and the Beis Hamikdash with the kohenim, what did the kohenim do? The kohenim ate karbonis, and not just stand they ate karbonis. They ate karbonis in the heichel times that they had to, even though the derech was in the azara. And the way we eat karbonis has to be mashkol, gdula, has to be an oifen of breitkeit. So Shabbat Cain comes out, that was mamash a Beis dira. If that's the case, comes out that the Beis, even though Taka Shul is not considered a Beis dira, because the Shul is Taka only to learn and to daven, and even though Taka we find that the Talmud Chacham is allowed to eat and drink in the Shul, but that's only ba'ofen ari. If that's the heter, is only ba'ofen ari. But Beis Hamikdash, since the eating of the achilas kachim was ba'ofen kavua, so therefore qualifies as a gather of Beis dira, and therefore it's mechuyev mitzvahs Maika. Ad kan, the Rebbe explains al pi nigla. The Rebbe goes on to explain the whole concept of mitzvahs Maika al pi pnimis inyonim. And the Rebbe explains what does this mean in pnimis inyonim. So the Shalach explains that what is a gag? A gag is something which is higher, which represents the idea of isnasus and yeshus. The fact that a person sometimes feels a yesh or a mitzias, a isnasus. So what does the Torah say? Vasisa Maika l'gagecha. That in the yeshus ha'adam, isnasus ha'adam, the gag, you have to make sure to make a maika. Fatzam in the yeshus, you have to make sure to fence in to guard the yeshus. Why taka? The pasuk continues. Ki yipal aneful meinanu. Because Rahman Islam, we know that Midas Hagaiva brings a person to the worst things, and the Shaydish for all ruchnistic problems come from Midas Hagaiva. So therefore, Ki Yipal Anefel Mebenu, a person has to make sure that his Midas Hagaiva, his Isnasus, his Gag, should have a Maika. So what is the Hira that we learn? The Rebbe says is, we find that the Heichel had a Maika. More so, the Rebbe says. The Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Pashtas, the Kodesh HaKadoshim also had a Michael. Comes out, a person might say that when does he need a Micah? Only for a Gashmistic in Yonim. Yeshus, a Gashmis, Taka keep away from Menach, Monol San, can bring him to the worst things possible. Mashenkin and Kedusha, L'chure, a Metzias Adam in Kedusha, L'chure is an unbelievable thing. But you believe in B'daki Hashem, a Talmud Chacham has to have Shminish and B'shminish. There's no need of mitzvahs Maika. Fakir. This is Vayik believe in B'daki Hashem. So it comes out that even in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, this is the that we learn, even in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and even in the Heichel, they needed a Maika. Why? Because Rahman al-Islam, it could be used, unfortunately, in the wrong way. But to take it a step further, the Pashtus Ki Yipal Anefel Mimenu is not going on the actual person. Yipal Anefel Mimenu is going on somebody visiting you. There's a Baal HaMaik, there's a Baal HaGag, there's a person the person in our situation, Baruch Hadisi in Yonim, is the person that has Gaiva. And then, unfortunately, what happens is, the other person will fall down. So what does this represent? The Kud is, the Rebbe's Masber, when he goes and he's oising a fatzas mayonis and fatzas hayados in Karav Yidin Lavim Sheveshemayim, what could happen is sometimes Rahman al-Islam, the Yeshus Adam can get into the way. And that's a type, Kisivna Bayis Chadosh, when a person is going to build a bayis Beruchnis, he's going to be Karav Yidin, whether it be Haknosas Orchim, like the Rebbe says, Beis Chav, Beis Hav, Chacham, whatever, Ikshel Layia, Emes, Adina B'Tachtayim, makes a bayis. If there's going to be a gag, his Yeshus Adam is going to get involved. So what's the problem? The problem is if a person is together of the Yeshus Adam, besides the fact that it won't be Dvarim Hayetzim Alev, or the person might not feel you as a Dugma Chaya to be able to appreciate what you have to say, technically it should be as Klipasa Izorek, which means is Kivos Amis Misha Imre. Take it the truth from the person, regardless of state dabei, state nish dabei. But unfortunately, sometimes not only he won't be able to accept what you have to say, but he's going to fall. What shot he's going to fall? He'll be taki, be meruchik from Yiddishkeit whatsoever. He'll say, if this is what a yid that's being mekarev yid l'asher shemayim. And now we say, and even those take boyfriend shall kiyipol anoifel be'emes is take consider anoifel sheish meibreis and should take been that way. But actually here the sof is a person has to make sure to fatam in the yeshus v'asisa Michael agaga. But the Rebbe connects it to what we mentioned in the beginning, that a regular shul taka doesn't need mitzvahs Michael. When it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash does these mitzvahs Ma'aser. What's the beer? The beer is that what does a shul represent? A shul represents the avoida shul of Beis Medrash, the avoida ma'atzmai, which means l'meratera, v'kiyum mitzvahs. When a person is ois gitam for dvarim gashmi, and when he's ois gitam in dvarim gashmi, perhaps these inyonim of gag. Perhaps maybe doesn't need a Maikah, or upon him the problems of that you need a mitzvah's Maikah is not so much. When it comes to Beis Hamikdash, with the Beis Hamikdash, the concept of Beis Hamikdash means being oisik b'dor and gashmi, making dira b'tachtoinim, and the point of the Beis Hamikdash is hashkufim atumim, which means is that the purpose of the Beis Hamikdash is to b'ashpia on the chutzah. Sai elevating the gashmi is through avodas hakarbonis, and sai b'mishpia on the chutzah. So there, Taka, one has to make sure that Dafki there, and Dafki in the Beis Hamikdash, will make sure Vasisa Michael Gagava. Taka wish Bezeiche, to the Gula, Mitzvah Vashem, or the
Beis Hamikdash nicht Mama Govea. Man leicht nicht zum Pay, man leicht zum Ebersch.
Like so helps, aber das Schutef, jeder sagt alles mal in der Ebersch. Jeder einer, David HaMelech hat geklimmt Geld von allen Jiden. Aber was hat er nicht Kaivisch gewähnt? Er hat nicht, David HaMelech hat nicht Kaivisch gewähnt in Jerusalem. Aber was? Ganz er soll der Kaivisch gewähnt. Aber was? Der Rebbe sagt das so. Der Rebbe sagt das sicher. Als David HaMelech hat gemacht, als jeder in so Schol von Jerusalem.
A Schul kann man verkaufen, the Board of Directors, aber Beis Hamikdash kann man nicht verkaufen.
Nein, weil alle Juden tun das, weil alle verhängen alle Schützen zusammen, können wir nicht verkaufen. Was war da nicht? Wir machen das dabei gleich Hashem. Ich übersehe, was du David HaMelech nicht eingenommen in Jerusalem. Was du nicht eingenommen in Jerusalem? Was du nicht da gehen zu Havana, und kämpfen die Geld von Geld. Alle Juden nach dem Stadt gehen, alle Schwoten, die gehen geschickt Menschen. Eshkayach, Levi. In Mirza Hashem, after Ma'ariv, there will be a siyum, and would ask everybody to please help the minyoni that we need outside. Is
Beis Hamikdash steht Mashiach immer da Grab, der Vater von der Maike.